Welcome into a special edition of Stephen Bethany's Hopecast. Oops, shoot, hit the wrong button. All right, let's try this again. All right, so we're rolling now, and so let's start again with the patrons. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. We've got a special guest we'll be telling you all about as we get started here, and we're going to get started right now. Welcome into a very special edition of Stephen Bethany's Hopecast.
Hey, we're Stephen Bethany, a former radio team turned podcasters.
We're passionate about learning and sharing ways of putting the words of Jesus into practice in real life.
Here we go.
All right, welcome in, Hope Dealers. We are glad that you are joining us wherever you are, literally around the world. Thank you for your time being here. Bethany, we've got a special guest. We're doing a whole special episode we'll get to here in just a second, but how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited that Rob has taken the time to hang out with us today. This is my friend Rob Butler. I've known you for how long? Like 8 years?
It's been a while. I think I moved, I think 7.
7? Something like that?
Yeah, like something like that.
We go way
like
back.
7, yeah.
Rob's a family friend, and you have an amazing story. So I was talking to Steve about like different, podcast ideas and what we kind of wanted to do. And I told you, I said, I know a guy that's got an awesome testimony, a really cool story, and I want to have him on the podcast. You were like the first person that I thought of.
Yeah, and this is what's so cool about this. We did some audience research not terribly long ago, and one of the things they said when we do have guests, because that's normally what we don't do for a lot of reasons, but when we do, we want to have people on that have great God stories. And folks wanted to hear from those type people. So we're going to start doing that from time to time. We're not going to wear it out, but we're going to bringing special guests on like Rob to be able to talk about their life and how God has worked through them and the different testimonies. So we're going to start this week, and you give a more formal introduction. So
a more formal introduction?
Come on,
how much
just
more
say,
formal?
Well, I don't know.
Let's see.
Tell about it. What is?
Let's see. Okay. Robert Butler, family friend.
Yeah, family friend.
You've been over to the house many times.
Yeah. Your family's dope, by the way.
Cool family. You love my dad.
Yeah, we supposed to get coffee a while ago.
I know we talked about that. He owes my dad a coffee. But no, super good friends with us. And I think what's cool is how, like, God's really moved powerfully in your life. You played football. You've done all kinds of amazing things. You work in social work now. You've done a lot. Yeah. And so I think we should just kind of jump right into it and get into your story and what it looks like. So share a little bit about where you grew up and kind of just your upbringing. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up originally in Chicago. I'm originally from the south side of Chicago, which I was just there 2 weeks ago. And I can get into the story or just about where I grew up?
Go right in.
Okay. So I like the fact you said this is about God stories, and I feel like my whole life has been a God story, even just last week. I mean, even just yesterday. So I grew up originally in Chicago and stayed there probably around about the age of 7. What happened was both of my parents were drug dealers on the south side of Chicago. Didn't grow up hearing about God. Didn't go to church. Never anything like that. And long story short, my dad had some events that occurred in Chicago, which were very tragic, where lives and stuff were lost. And he pretty much just took me and my brothers and relocated us to Minnesota. Long story short, the situation in Chicago, my dad just brought the same type of lifestyle to Minnesota. So my dad was a drug dealer involved in some gang type stuff. And what he was doing, he was raising up me and my little brothers for the same lifestyle. So he pretty much, like, I didn't start kindergarten on time. Like, I started kindergarten a year late because instead of going to kindergarten, I was on the block learning how to sell drugs. So that's what I was spending my days doing, with my pops.
So you had no idea there was any other type of life?
No, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't
so
know.
Young.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I didn't know the way we were living. I just thought that's how everybody lived.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the communities I grew up in, a lot of kids didn't even have a dad. So, like, I was happy that I had pops. Like, that was something to brag about. Like, yo, my dad.
He's in your life.
He's in my life.
Like, yeah.
And yeah, well, I go to school. What your dad do for work? Oh, he's a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like, yeah, but other kids, like, it was the same thing. Like, they also, but funny story, we had a time when I was in third grade, short story. When I was in third grade, my dad, he took us and moved us to a small town in Minnesota, a small suburb of Minnesota called Maple Grove. And it was only for like a 4-month period. But in this school, like, me and my little brother was like the only minorities. Mm-hmm. And I never lived in the suburbs, knew nothing about a suburb, never heard of a suburb. And so we in the school, and I remember like career day.
Oh, man.
It's career day, and you had kids' parents come up to the school like, oh, man, my dad's a pilot, or my mom's a teacher or something. And they were like, yo, what's your dad do? I'm like, oh, my dad's a drug dealer. And
did you get in trouble? Did they think you were kidding?
No, I mean, they didn't know what to think.
Yeah. They're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Say that again.
They didn't know what to think. But then I'm hanging out. I remember this one kid named Samuel. I'll never forget him. We became friends, and I went over to his house, and his family, like, eating dinner together, and, like, family had careers. And that's the first time I'm like, hold up. Like, there's people that live differently than what we're living in. So that's that. But around the fast forward, around the time I was about 10 years old, my dad went to prison for selling drugs. He got caught up, went to prison, and I was living with my mom. But when my dad went to prison, that was the first time I realized I wanted something different for my life. I wasn't sure what I wanted, but I'm like, yo, I just don't want this. And what that did was it forced me to grow up early because I had younger siblings that I had to raise. So from that point on, I started seeking something different. So I started seeking it in sports. I started seeking it, really in sports. And
did you have any kind of religious upbringing at all? Like any idea of God?
Zero. Anytime I even thought about the idea of God, I would get angry because I'm like, yo, why is my life like this? Like, God doesn't care about me. God doesn't care about our life. So,
well, let me stop you there. Did you have an innate sense that there was a God, or that was just something made up that you never really heard of or experienced?
I had the idea there was a God because, let me say this. I went to church one time, and it was on Easter, and I went with my mom. My mom never took us again after this because my little brother was in there being silly and embarrassing her. it was a Pentecostal church. It was catching Holy Ghost. My little brother was like, ah. So my mom was like, no, we ain't doing that again because she's about to choke him. But even with that, when I heard the idea of a God, it just made me angry.
Okay.
Yeah.
But long story short, how I came to know God. So I'm 13 years old. I just moved in with my dad. My dad just got out of prison. Mm-hmm. I'm 13 years old. I moved in with my dad, who just got out of prison. My dad's like, yo, I'm done with selling drugs. Like, I'm gonna go to school, get my life together, which, he went and got his counseling degree. So he's like, I'm gonna go from selling dope to working people that's addicted to drugs and stuff. And so, but life was still just crazy because there's no God. So life is just like, my dad's still living wild. So we live in around the same time. We're living on Thomas Street in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm living with my dad. Around the same time, there's this new church plant right around the corner. They just planted a church like around the same time we moved in. Church plant right around the corner from my house. Mm-hmm. So I remember Wednesday nights, there would be Wednesday nights. I remember we'd get home from like football practice. Me and my brother like play basketball in the back of our apartment building. There'd be this blue van with like these tinted windows, and it'd drive by, and the dude would like raise the window down. Was like, "Hey guys, do you guys want to go to church?" And it was like some like young white dude, and
were you like kind of like, this is creepy? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm like, bro, this is suspect. So I'm like, nah, bro, we're not going to church with you. I'm like, bro, I don't know what church you got, but whatever you're trying to do, I ain't trying to go to it. Me and my brother, we call it the raper van because it was like,
right.
Well, yeah, it's a creepy van.
It's a creepy van.
Like, you got candy in there? What are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And y'all know around October, it starts to get dark early. So it was already like dark. It was around like 7 o'clock at night. He'll come around. But this dude showed up. It was some young dude, man. He'll show up every Wednesday. You guys want to go to church? You guys want to go to church? You guys want to go to church? I'm like, nah. So one Wednesday, this dude's persistent. One Wednesday, we are inside our apartment, And my dad and my stepmom, my dad got married to my stepmom, which is a story in itself. My dad got married to my stepmom, and they're trying to have some alone time. Mm-hmm. I have a young sister named Jayla who's 16 now, but she wasn't born. So I'm like, yo, they was trying to create Jayla. So
we got to get out.
Yeah, they was trying to get some alone time. So it just so happened, the dude, you guys want to go to church on Wednesday? He found out what apartment we lived in. I don't know how.
Oh, man.
I don't know if he asked the other kids or something, but he went and got a doorbell, and my dad was like, yeah, y'all go with him. And so we went with the dude to this thing called Awana. I don't know if y'all familiar with the Awana program.
I was an Awana commander for decades.
So you know.
Yeah, and
man.
I went into Awana, like, I was a Cubby, I was a Sparks, like, all the way up. Yeah.
Do you remember what the Awana acronym stood for?
Bro, I don't. What
it's approved workman is not ashamed.
Okay, approved workman, not ashamed.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you got it. So you went to Awana.
So we went to Awana, but when I first went, I liked it. Mm-hmm. And it was weird because I didn't think I liked it. But the other part of my story, and people, I mean, we're in the South, I'm going to say it, because people look funny when I say it down here. But I grew up racist. I grew up like with hatred towards white people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And part of that was there was a couple things. One, my mom, growing up, my mom used to tell me, my brother was like, white people are the devil, stay away from them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, we're from Chicago. Chicago's very segregated. Mm-hmm. She didn't grow up around white people, but her parents grew up in the South, and they grew up like during a time where like they know people that were lynched, family members and stuff. So they fled to the North.
Okay.
And they told my mom, stay away from white people, they're the devil. So when we came up, my mom said, white people are the devil. Well, when I was around 9 years old, my dad left my mom for a white woman.
Oh, wow.
Which became my stepmom. So that kind of like added to like,
right.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. And then I went to the school in third grade. I went to this school, and me and my brothers, we were bullied at this school. Like I had the one kid, Sam, but outside of that, every day walking home, there was these white kids that used to make fun of us because our hair was different. And a lot of them, they never even seen a black kid up until me and my brother.
That's how segregated it is?
Well, in Minnesota too, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
it's so cold up there.
It's
just cold, man.
They're just mad because they're cold.
That's right.
No, it's cold, but also part of it, the other part why it's segregated, when black people migrated from the South to the North, they went where the jobs
were.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to like
and a lot of them Chicago,
and Detroit and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, Detroit. They didn't go to like the suburban area. So
right.
a lot of these kids didn't grow up around black people.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, these experiences, some covert, some overt. Well, one was overt, which was the kids.
Yeah. But you did have kind of like underlying ideas
thing.
About people.
Yeah. So I'm at this church now, right around the corner from my house, and it's been planted by a bunch of white people. And so it was just weird. So, but the cool part, all the kids that were there were kids from the community, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept my eyes on the people that were leading the Awana program. And because I didn't trust them. But one thing that kept me coming back every week is if you remember a scripture, it's funny. You remember a scripture, they give you a king-size candy bar. You know that?
Sure.
Right,
sure.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So every week.
It's called bribery, but it's okay.
Bribery, yeah. Well, I lived for the candy bar. I lived every week. So I remember these scriptures. I'm like, they don't mean anything, but I remember them.
Right.
So every week I'm on the school bus reciting these verses. Wednesday morning, about to head to Awana. So God started to change my heart. So as I'm memorizing these scriptures, for some reason around the same time as I'm showing up on Wednesdays, these scriptures started to like ping my heart. Like they started to connect. Like I don't know how, but they just started to like make a difference. Like I just started to I wanted to know more. What does this mean? What hard pressed on every side but not crushed, perplexed but not despair, persecuted but not forsaken. I'm like, yo, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And so then I asked for a Bible, and so I started reading the Bible. But the thing that got me with these people, I didn't listen to what they said. I watched what they did. I remember a time where around the same time, my youngest brother, DeMarco, he got sick in the hospital with kidney disease where they said he probably about to die. Man, these people show up to the hospital. They didn't even know us, but they showed up to the hospital. And then, like, at the same time, they, like, start bringing food to our house.
Wow.
And then they started having us over for dinner at their house. And, they let us hang with their kids. And so something was off to me.
And you'd never experienced anything close to that.
Nothing like this.
Nothing.
Yeah, especially
And you're still probably looking with a real skeptical eye at it.
Real skeptical eye.
Yeah.
With a real skeptical eye. Because in my mind, I'm like, yo, these people supposed to be the devil, which to me at the time, I'm like, yo, these people supposed to hate me.
Yeah.
But if anything, they're doing the opposite of that. Now,
what's their angle?
Yeah, what's their agenda? That's what I kept looking for. I just kept looking for where are they gonna fail? Where's the real them gonna show up? When the devil gonna show up?
right.
Yeah, when the devil gonna show up? But as they were doing this, my heart started to soften, and I started to spend more time. But then they invited us to Sunday church, and so we started coming to church, and I started going to the Bible studies, and then I started reading the Bible. So it was like a progression.
Well, let me ask you, just back up just a little bit back to the Awana leaders. When you had those questions about the scriptures that you're learning, were you able to go to one of those leaders and ask, what does this mean? Was somebody there that took you aside and said, let me show you what the Bible says about that? Was it one person or two? Or
So at the time, I didn't trust them, so I didn't ask them nothing. Gotcha. I kept them thoughts to myself. I didn't trust them. I kept them thoughts to myself. But over time, what happened was, one day, this is when it all changed for me. One day, there was this dude named Graham Nelson. This dude was like the whitest dude, Midwestern white dude you'll ever meet. But him and his family, Kim, they had 3 boys, and they lived right in the hood. And that was still mind-boggling to me. Even at that time, I'm like, yo, y'all live in the hood. Y'all like the only white people in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's crazy, but y'all here. But I went to Graham one day. I was like, bro, why do y'all care so much? Why do y'all keep showing up? Y'all showing up to my football games. At that time, I was a fat kid. I didn't play that much. I'm like, y'all come to watch me play. Y'all don't even play. Like, why y'all keep doing this? And they said, Rob, we want you to know the love of God. And that's what they did. And so I said, well, wherever this God that y'all know or live for, I want to start living for that God. So at that time, at 14, I gave my life to God. And that's when I started to ask the questions, like, yo, I got a question about this, I got a question about that. But I still was a skeptic because I was like, God, I want this relationship with you to become really real in my life. Like, I want to understand this more. And so I'm a freshman in high school, first semester in high school. I'm a new Christian, I'm a new convert, but I'm still rough. I'm still a street dude. So long story short, first semester of high school, I got expelled for fighting. My first semester, I got in 3 fights in 3 weeks.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, got in 3 fights in 3 weeks. And pretty much the only option at that point, I ain't only get kicked out of school, I got kicked out of school district.
wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
my goodness.
and so the only option, and we were broke, we were poor. So the only option I had was to go live with my mom, who was still living a street lifestyle. My mom was still selling dope, still just living reckless. And I was like, man, I don't want that. And so my prayer was, I said, God, yo, I want to do the right thing. I just don't know how. I was like, I need help. And I was like, please do something. And so the second semester of school already started, and I'm getting ready to pack my stuff up and leave my mom's house. I get a phone call from the principal of the high school, and he just said, hey, we're going to let you back into the school. It was just random. He said, we're just going to let you back into the school. So I go back to the school. I had to sign some papers. I signed the papers. Long story short, I'm walking in the hallway, and this math teacher came up to me. He was like, Rob, give me a ride home after school, just like that. I knew who he was because he was the varsity football coach, but I didn't think he knew who I was because I wasn't that good at the time. I was an okay football player. So we're riding in this dude's car or whatever, barely know this dude, and he just like turned the radio down. He said, Rob, he said, you know you owe me, right? And I thought he was talking about for the ride home. And so I grabbed my backpack. I was like, bro,
What
you
you
let me
want?
right here. No, I'm like, you let me. I'm not about to pay you, bro,
right.
because you offered me. You told me you'd give me a ride home. And he was like, no, it's not like that. He said, I'm not talking about that. He said, Rob, he said the reason why you back into the school is because of me. And I said, okay, what do you mean? He said, over the winter break, I sat down with the principals and we pulled out my contract. And we put in my contract to let you back into the school. But the condition was, if you get into another fight at this high school, not only are you gone, but I'm gone also. Man. And so I'm fired as the math teacher and the football coach at this high school. I won't be able to coach or teach here ever again.
Now, you must have thought this white dude was crazy.
Thought it was bananas.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, what the heck?
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, Because he really didn't know you, right?
He didn't know me, yeah.
And had no reason to care about what happened to you, or
had no reason.
Yeah.
He had no reason. He had nothing to gain in the situation. Nothing against. Well, it'd be different. I was like an all-world football player.
Right.
I was just fat. If I show y'all a picture of me, I look like Biggie Smalls. Like, yo, if I show y'all a picture,
You do realize too that he has very strong opinions about Biggie. Like,
Oh, no.
that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole other
but,
conversation
hear
about.
that.
We'll talk about
I
that
just
later.
I just had to educate her on the whole Biggie Tupac and everything that was going on, and
If
you don't
you
want to
even-
mess with Suge.
If you
make
even
sure it's
knew
true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
the conversations that we've had about this, like we'll talk about it after, but like it's a big thing. Okay,
I
so
want to hear
anyway,
for sure.
so did you feel like kind of a sense of obligation to get it together after that?
Yeah. So the thing he said to me after that, he said, "Rob," at that point I felt like I owed him my life.
Right.
Sure.
And I said, "Okay, bro, what do you want me to do?" I was like, "I owe you, like whatever you want me to do." And he said, "Rob," he said, "It's not what you can do for me, but it's what you can do for you." I said, "Okay." He said, "There's 3 things I want you to do." I said, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" He said, "I want you to take your relationship with God more serious." I was like, "All right, I don't know what that looks like, but I'll figure it out." Well, second thing, he was like, "I want you to take your education more seriously." I was like, "Okay, I don't know what that looks like either, but I'll figure it out." I'm like, "Okay, what's the third thing?" He said, "I want you to start taking football more seriously." I'm like, "All right, I don't know what that looks like, but I'll figure it out." And he was like, "There's one thing I want you just to do." I said, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" He said, "Hey, don't get into a fight at the school because my wife don't know I did this."
Oh no.
So he was like, "Don't get into a fight." He was like, "Cause he was like, this get ruined." He said,
Or otherwise, you're gonna have to talk to my wife for me.
He was like, "My kid's college is messed up."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my house payment, my mortgage is gonna be messed up. And this wasn't like he was he just was one game away from the state title. Like it wasn't
Wow.
like he was a scrub coach. Like it wasn't like they were 0-11. Like
Right.
they're like 11-1. Like the last 2 years.
So he had a ton to lose.
Yeah, a ton to lose and nothing to gain. And so I was like, "Yo, why did you do this?" And he said, "Rob, it's called grace. It's the same thing Christ did for us." He said he's giving us something we don't deserve.
Now, again, I'm curious. How did he know you? I mean, did he just know that you were that bad kid that was gotten in so many fights? Did he have any relationship with the church, or?
Nah,
I mean,
he was just a varsity coach. So what
Really?
happened was he heard the fights I got in. First off, the fights I got in, the reason I fought is because I was a new Christian. And I was living, right before that, I was living as a worldly person. And all of a sudden, I'm at school carrying my Bible. I'm on fire. I'm a new Christian. So I'm like telling everybody about God at
Yeah.
school. Like, bro, you got to give your life to God. It was on some reckless, you're going to go to hell type stuff.
Right.
And so people got tired of that real quick.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I wasn't the guy who going to turn the other cheek. I'm like, all right, bro, I'm going to put my Bible down.
Let's
and,
go.
And we're
And
going
then
to
we'll
go.
fight. Yeah.
And that's what happened.
But
And
I think
go
though, for
ahead.
somebody listening that's maybe a new Christian, that's encouraging. That like, not saying that overnight you don't change, because you do. I mean, like you're not the same person you were before, but there's still habits there that you have to lay down as you grow in your faith and as you learn more about the Lord. There's still things in your life that you're gonna have to work through. Obviously, God can remove anything from your life that He chooses to. There's things that He can just take away right away.
Right.
But that's not the case for every single person all the time. There's still things that we as Christians need to grow in and learn and work through.
Exactly. I agree. And I'll say this. I just got back from New York last night. And while I was there, the dude that drove the blue van, his name Mike Gosler. He's 43 now, and so he was a young dude, and he used to get off work every day, every Wednesday, still in his UPS uniform, and come pick us up. Worked very hard at the time, and I was talking to him, and when I was in New York this past week, it was the first time ever I told him the impact he had on me driving that blue van. And it's funny, he said, looking back, he said at the time, he said, man, I felt like I was just wasting my time. He said, what I was doing, driving the van, picking up kids, he said, there was a lot of days I'm like asking, like, man, why am I doing this with my time? Like, I'm newly married,
Sure.
I can be spending time with my wife. And he felt like it was nothing. But he didn't know that what he was doing was everything for me. And I was talking to my dad about it yesterday. What Mike didn't know is I was in the dark. I just needed a little flashlight, like a little. And that's what Mike did for me. Like he bought me show up every Wednesday and bring me to this group. Like it changed my life. And now because of what he did and like what the football coach did, is allowing me to change other people's lives.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a ripple effect.
It's a ripple effect. But he didn't know. And so I think it just goes to show, it just goes to show that when God says, hey, plant the seed, he doesn't ask for a lot. He just says, hey, be faithful with what seems mundane. Because you never know, what's going to grow. And so, like, I told Mike that, like, bro, you don't even know, like, because of what you did for me, there's kids in Arkansas you will never meet. There's kids in Wisconsin you'll never meet. There's kids people in Minnesota you'll never meet. But because you showing up on Wednesdays, it's allowed me to be here today. So
kind of going forward a little bit. So after you kind of made that deal with the football coach saying, all right, I'm not going to do any of that stuff anymore. I'll get it together. Where did you go throughout high school? Like, kind of how did you grow as you got older and got more mature in your faith? Yeah,
so, I went on, didn't get into another fight, graduated.
You better not have got into
another fight. It was, the Lord was good, too, because nobody after that tried me. I mean, after you whoop a few dudes, nobody.
That's it.
And nobody don't really want to try me. So, and the Lord was good, so the Lord watched out for me. But, went on to finish there. Went to college. Finished, got my bachelor's degree in social work and sociology. But my faith in the Lord really started to develop more actually when I moved to Arkansas.
Well, what brought you here?
Grad school. So I wasn't, bro, listen, living in Minnesota and then just going to school in Wisconsin, bro, when you're looking at grad schools, you do not look for Arkansas. Like,
I'm sure that's true.
Bro, I was not looking for Arkansas, bro. Like, I just say this real quick. When I was interviewing for grad schools, I only applied because I had some friends who kept saying, like, bro, you need to apply. And I had like 4 different people kept bringing up this random school called UCA in Minnesota. Like, random people kept telling me about this school in Arkansas. I'm like, all right, bro, I'll just apply. I had the interview for the scholarship. Yo, when I say I tried to purposely blow this interview, hey, they flew me down. I had an in-campus interview, and I tried to blow it because I was trying to go to school on the East Coast. I tried to blow this interview. I went in there, didn't prepare for none of the questions. Just went in there, just gave like some flat answers. Yo, hey, when they offered me the scholarship, they called me. They was like, yo, you gave one of the best interviews.
That's like, so great.
You don't want to see me when I actually try it.
It's like, you gave one of the best interviews. They were like, we want to offer you. And they called me like, it was like the day after. Like, I got home, they called me.
They're like, we got to get this Rob guy. He's so great.
Yeah, but it was just God, because God was like, yo, this is where you're supposed to be. But long story short, my relationship with God really started to grow probably around grad school, right after grad school. And you probably know a little bit about this, probably don't, but they say make God laugh, tell him your plans. Well, at the time, I was in grad school, and I was building this empire for myself. Yeah. So, and I'm writing a book on this now, but at the time, I knew God as my Savior, but I didn't know Him as my Lord. And there's a difference, and I didn't know that. Like, I didn't understand lordship. I didn't understand my life. You hear, my life is not my own. Yeah. I sung that, but I didn't really know what that meant, and I didn't live like it. Like, it was kind of like, God.
I was going to say, my story is a lot like that in the fact that growing up here in the South, in a Southern Baptist tradition, which I love Southern Baptist because I am one and have been one forever, but we tend to focus on you need a relationship with God. You need to be saved. You need to give your life and repent of your sins and give your heart to Christ. Yep. But then it kind of stops.
That's where it ends.
What's after that? What's after that? You think, well, okay, I just kind of go back to where I was because I've got it now. But there's so much discipleship. There's so much. That's just the first baby step. And I don't think a lot of churches on a whole preach that.
Yeah, exactly.
And teach that. And what is it that Jesus said? Jesus said, go and make disciples.
Go make disciples.
Not
but
just
that's like a hard thing to do, and it takes effort. And I think, honestly, stepping on toes, but like a lot of the time it kind of comes down to laziness. Like people don't want to take the time to invest in another person and the effort and the energy that takes.
I'm listening to your story, and I'm thinking to myself, and I'm asking myself this question. Would I have done all that the UPS guy did? Would I have done that if I was the coach?
Right.
Man, if we're being honest, no.
I don't know.
Honestly,
for real,
Exactly. No, so like I said, it's funny you say that because like I'm writing a book right now. It's called a lamp on the stand: How to Become a Light in a Dark World. And it just talks about the importance of the life you could have if God is your Lord, you know. And then it becomes Father. I didn't understand God being my father up until like 2 years ago. And I gave my life to God when I was 14. And so, but yeah, my life really started to change when I graduated. I just finished up grad school, and like grad school, it was crazy. Like I wrote a thesis that got published in the education realm. Yeah, I did a TED Talk, and that TED Talk led to me starting a consultant company. So then I'm in grad school, like traveling around. How did I not know this? Because I don't talk about it.
I was like, I didn't get any of this.
No, I don't talk about it because it was my old life. Like it was an empire that I was trying to build. Like I wanted to be known as like this great speaker all across the world. Sure. I'm about to make all this money. People gonna know my name. You know what I'm saying? And then I had this girl I was dating. I met in grad school, gorgeous. Like she's going to go to law school at, down in Florida. So I had my plans mapped out. I had this company. I'm gonna move down to Florida with this girl. I'm gonna travel and speak. She's gonna be a lawyer. We're gonna be like this power couple. We're gonna be like this powerhouse or whatever. And God's gonna bless it. And so like one day I'm in Conway, Arkansas, driving down David Ward, and I feel like the Lord spoke to me. And it was like the first time ever. And I was like, the Lord, I feel like the Lord just said, yo, you're not moving nowhere. I'm calling you to stay in Arkansas. The thing I tell people all the time, like, yo, I'll never stay here past grad school. I say it all the time. I got friends. I can get them records. I always talk about Arkansas. I'll never stay here. I hate it here. But I was driving. I feel like God said, that girl you with, you need to break up with her. And you're supposed to stay here in Arkansas because I got plans for you here in Arkansas. And then I had a random thought in my head about Florida. Now, at this time, I didn't know my girlfriend was thinking about moving to Florida. We ain't talk about it. I didn't know. Well, later that night, we're hanging out in my apartment. And, like, we just, like, you know, bubble up, you know, cuddle up on the couch.
Snuggles.
Yeah, snuggles up or whatever. So she just randomly brought it up. She was like, yo, have you ever thought about moving to Florida? I said, oh, crap.
Like, why'd you have to bring this up right now?
So at that point, I knew, I'm like, okay, I heard from God today. I heard from God today. Because I'm like, I know I want to tell myself that. So long story short, after long disobedience, I was finally obedient to God. I broke up with my girlfriend. And he told me to quit the consulting company. Stop trying to, I don't want you doing that. I stopped doing the consulting company. But I didn't have a job. And so I'm like, if I'm not going to do this, what am I supposed to do? And so I remember he told me, I got work for you here in Arkansas. So I'm like, okay. But I didn't know what that looked like. So, and my scholarship was up, so I had to move out of my apartment at UCA. So I moved in with some random middle-aged white dude I met on Craigslist. Like, yeah, I moved in with this dude.
That's how every great story starts. Like, some random guy I met on Craigslist.
Man, some dude from Mississippi, man. I moved in with this dude. And I didn't tell this dude I didn't have a job. I didn't tell him nothing. I avoided him or whatever. Because I was kind of embarrassed, too. Yeah. I was embarrassed because I'm like, I heard from
God.
Because,
hey, God told me this.
God told me that. So I was embarrassed. I didn't talk to nobody.
I'm homeless, and I don't have a job, and it's all because of God.
Exactly, bro.
Always gets a good response from people, yeah.
Exactly. So I kept to myself. So I didn't tell this dude anything. Now, the thing is, the money I made from doing the consultant stuff, I'm thinking the money going to keep coming in. So I was spending it, giving it away. Because I'm like, yo. Yeah. So at this time, it's the summertime, and I'm broke. And I ain't got no job. And so, like, I didn't tell this dude I didn't have a job. Anyways, it's time to pay rent or whatever for the next month. And I started packing my stuff up because I'm like, I ain't got money for rent.
Yeah.
So I told this dude, I was like, hey, bro. I was about to tell him. And then miraculously, long story short, God provided the money. Through my auntie who I haven't talked to since I was like 7. She like wired me some money.
What?
Yeah, she was like, yo, she's like, your mama told me you graduated from grad school. I just sent you the money. It was the exact money I needed for my rent.
How about that?
Yeah. Wow. So anyways, I went and paid this dude the rent money. Like I was all confident, like swag, like walked up into him like, yo, bro, I got the rent or whatever. And the dude was like, he was like, okay, cool. So I started like walking off, like about to head back out the house.
Yeah.
And he was like, you don't have a job, do you? He just randomly asked me. He was like, you don't have a job, do you? I was like, you want the truth or you want a lie? And he was like, I already know you don't have a job. And I was like, bro, how do you know that? He was like, God showed me you're the person we've been praying for. Wow. That's what's working with us. When you first moved in here, you're the guy. He's like, I work for an organization, and we've been praying that God sends us a guy who can work with kids in the inner city, who has ability to communicate and has experience running an organization.
Wow.
And that's you.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's you to a T.
To a T, yeah. And so this guy was like, he ain't know anything about me. I didn't know this guy. But he said, hey, God showed you this. I mean, he said God showed him this. So he was like, I've been waiting on you to tell me the truth.
So that's so cool, though, that he was just waiting you out. He was waiting for you to be like, okay, drop the pride. Like,
exactly.
let's just lay all our cards out here.
Exactly. And so at this time, because I kind of rushed through the story, at this time, though, I didn't break up with my girlfriend at this time. I was still with my girl. Because I kept telling her, like, yo, I finally told her one day, like, yo, I think God's calling me to stay in Arkansas for like a year, so I'm going to stay here for a year, and I'm going to move down with you or whatever. So anyways, long story short, he gave me his boss's number. I went and got lunch with his boss, and his boss was like, yo, we have a nonprofit, and we need a director for this nonprofit down at Little Rock. And he was like, what you think? I was like, I don't want to, but
okay.
I'll do it. But the work they were doing, it was the same work I was already doing, which is the crazy part. Except, like, the speaking stuff, except I was traveling and speaking with, students and with faculty. It was the same thing, but it was ministry now.
Wow.
So I go into these schools, talk to the kids, talk to people about God, talk to these kids about God or whatever. Long story short, I ended up moving to Little Rock, broke up with my girl, and started working in ministry. And at the time, when I broke up with my girlfriend, people told me I was crazy because they was like, bro, she's gorgeous, and she about to be a lawyer. You can move to Miami, Florida, and you're gonna choose to stay in Little Rock, Arkansas. And you talking about God told you to, and you gave up your consulting company. And so I felt like an idiot, and so I prayed about it, and I was like, God, let me know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I need confirmation. So one day, I go to this church down in Little Rock. I was living in Conway at the time. I go to church in Little Rock. There was this woman that came up to me, and she was like, I had a dream about you. I never seen this woman a day in my life. It was like some older woman, no joke. She's like, I had a dream about you. And I was like, okay. I was like, what was the dream? She was like, well, I didn't see your face, but I seen what you had on in the dream. And I had like this Jamaican hoodie, like colorful hoodie. I still got it. And she was like, God told me to tell you that he called you to a season of singleness, that you're not supposed to be married, and he's calling you to Little Rock for a reason, because he has an assignment that he's calling you to. So he was like, you're not going to have time for marriage. You're not going to have time for none of that stuff. He has a very specific assignment that's going to cause you to be fully focused. Well, 4 months later, I adopted my little sister.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you know Jayla. I adopted my sister, and so I'm like, oh, this makes sense. So Little Rock has been a good place for me to raise her. You know, it's been, God's put.
How long ago was that, by the way? How long have you had her?
And Jayla's 16, about to be 17 in 2 weeks, so she was 12.
Okay.
Jayla was 12 when she moved with me. So, so it's been some time.
Yeah.
It's been some time.
So what's been, I think, in that season of you adopting your sister and just raising her and kind of being her main parental figure?
Well, a dad.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge in that, and what's been the biggest blessing in that?
Ooh, I'm glad you see. I'm glad you used the word challenge. 'Cause I always say it's a blessing and a burden. The biggest blessing, we just got back from New York last night. The biggest blessing is my sister. She is getting to experience stuff as a teenager that I didn't get to experience. So it's pretty cool. Like, and her walk with God, I'm watching her grow in her walk with God, which is pretty dope. Like when we were in New York last Wednesday, we found like some random like Wednesday night group, Bible study group, and we just like, I seen you online, so we just like showed up to it. Because I asked my friend, I was like, bro, how do you meet people in New York? He was like, I go on Tinder. I was like,
oh my gosh. You're like, no, not that.
I go on Tinder. And so I was like, how about this? I'm like, let me see if I can find a Bible study. So
you're not going to find that on Tinder. You got to look somewhere.
Yeah, he's like, I just go on Tinder, and that's how I meet people. I was like, okay. So I found the Bible study. So we get there, and the people was like, they just embraced us. But anyways, my little sister's 16, And she's like had opportunity to like minister to these women that are like my age, which is like crazy.
Yeah.
And so like,
well, and too, you kind of mentioned this earlier, but like you had to grow up pretty quickly as a kid. So like you didn't maybe have a childhood that your sisters had, like
exactly
bringing her opportunities to be a kid.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good, but that's been one of the things. But the challenge, the burden, the hardest part for me has been not my sister, it's been other people surrounding me as I raise my sister. So like people don't see me as the way I see my relationship with Jayla, as I see myself as her father figure. I do everything a father would do. But because my age and because she's my sister, other people see her just as my sister. And so then they feel like they have the right to come in and tell her, you know, what she should be doing. And sometimes it goes against
what you said.
What I'm saying, because I know Jayla. I know where we come from. I know what she needs based upon how she's wired. So that's been one of the burdens is I always have to deal with that. My sister's always like tug of war, like, do I listen to what he's saying?
Yeah.
There's other people, if that makes sense.
Well, and like it's always good to have people around that can influence, because there's gonna be times where it's like, all right, you can only say so much and her really hear it. Like sometimes it's more helpful to have another person say it.
Yeah.
But also you're the main authority figure and there's like a balance there.
There's
so
a balance.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, like I'll give one practical example. Like for a few years ago, this is like 2 years ago, there were women, you know, that was mentoring my sister, and they were I told them like, yo, Jayla's not ready to be in a relationship. She's 14. She don't need to focus on that. Because, I mean, Jayla had a very crazy life before she moved here. Like, she was experienced and exposed to a lot, you know, for 12 years straight, because there was no
like guidance or boundaries.
No guidance, no boundaries, none. So
yeah.
she pretty much did whatever she wanted. Well, I'm not saying she's out there living reckless.
Yeah.
But a lot of kids get to experience the world once they, like, head to college and stuff. Jayla experienced the world right away.
Way early,
You know what I'm saying? So these mentors, I was telling them, like, hey, my sister don't need to be focused on that. I'm trying to help her get a foundation, like put boundaries and let her learn these things. And then, you know, that'd be good for her. Well, these mentors, they didn't grow up how Jayla grew up. So they snuck behind my back, and Jayla had a whole boyfriend. So I'm thinking, like, Jayla's hanging out with the mentors. Yeah, and they taking Jayla to hang out with the boyfriend. And so I'm like, yo, like, but I wasn't mad.
Yeah.
They just didn't get it. And they're like, yo, your brother don't know what he's talking about. Like, he's just a brother. And so that's
I would have been mad. I'm surprised you weren't. Like,
yeah, well, I was mad, but it wasn't, at that point, it was happening so much with different people. Like, I'll have different people be like her mentor, and I'll constantly run across those type of situations over and over again with different people. But one of the things I was grateful for early on, I panicked my first year of raising Jayla. I was freaking out every day. I was in my bedroom crying, no joke. One day, I asked this guy, I was like, yo, like, I need assistance. And one of the things I learned, which was shocking for me, is the dude was like, yo, I'm not going to lie, I don't know nothing about raising a kid. You got to ask my wife. And I realized a lot of guys are not raising their kids up. It's the women. And so he introduced me to his wife, and like the next Wednesday, I'm sitting in some church basement at a mom's coffee hour at like 9 o'clock in the morning.
And you're the one guy
I'm
there.
the one dude there. And so, but I went to this group over and over again, and it was just weird. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the room with a bunch of moms, we drinking coffee, you know, people crying. I'm crying with them, and so. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, as we get ready to wrap up here, you have lived obviously an extraordinary life, and it has taught you, I think, more than this is me listening to your story, taught you more than anything else, dependence on God.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, when you were picked up by the Awana van, all the way through now raising your sister, you're learning and experiencing dependence on God. So as we wrap up, I want you to give some hope to some people. I don't know how many like inner city kids are listening to our podcast, but however, those people that would be in the mentor roles will be.
Yeah.
Bethany and I have already kind of admitted that I don't know whether we would have been taking that extra step that those mentors in your life did. So I want you to speak to those people that would be in a position of being a mentor when they see a kid maybe going down the wrong path, or they see a kid that, boy, I see some potential in, but he or she is just not there. They're give them some hope as to taking that leap of faith and involving themselves in their lives.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yo, I think about when Jesus got on the cross for us and died for us, he did it on a maybe. Maybe they will get saved, maybe they won't. Maybe they will follow me, maybe they won't. But he did it on the fact of a maybe. I think about Coach Scar. Maybe Rob will get into another fight, maybe he won't. You know what I'm saying? I think about Mike Gaza. Maybe Rob, maybe these kids, somebody's gonna show up to a Awana program, maybe they won't. You know, and there wasn't a lot of kids in that van.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And maybe it'll have impact, maybe it won't. But one of the things I say, you don't know if you don't go. You don't know if you don't go. And that's what faith is. Like, you have to go. You got to go find out. I'll give y'all this story, and I'll be done. When we was in New York, me and my little sister, we were just, like, talking. Like, her favorite artist is this dude named Montel Fish.
Okay.
And you know Montel Fish? He's dope. He's nice.
But I'm ready for all the musical recommendations. So I'm here for it.
Hey, he's dope. I like him too. So one of the things I did, I was like, yo, I messaged Montel Fish on Instagram. I ain't message. I commented on one of his posts. I was like, yo, Montel. I was like, I know you live in New York, bro. I was like, I don't know you, but you're my sister's favorite, like, artist, singer, or whatever.
What?
And we can see, if my sister could get a picture with you, that'd be dope. Which I'm like, that sounds like, that sounds crazy.
Total fanboy.
Yeah, like some fanboy type stuff. And then on top of that, I'm like, yo, this dude's busy. What's the chances?
Yeah, he's not
something
gonna,
like this happening?
Yeah.
So the next day, me and my little sister, we were on the train. My little sister was like, yo, I seen that you commented on Montel Fish post. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay. But it was kind of like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So the next day, this is on Thursday. Thursday, I took my little sister thrifting, and we were at the thrift store or whatever. We get done thrifting. I'm walking out the store, and as I'm walking out the door, guess who I see walking by?
Oh, shoot.
Montel Fish. I was like, yo, Montel.
You're like, hey.
Yo, and for real, and he had these big headphones on. It was just so happy. As he was walking by, he was adjusting his headphones.
Oh, man.
And so he had one thing up. So when he lifted up, he heard me call, Montel. He stopped. I was like, yo, I just messaged you 4 days ago. He was like, oh, man, I'm sorry. He's like, I get so many messages and comments. He was like, I don't.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, what you guys want? I was like, yo, my little sister want to get a picture with you.
Did she lose it?
No, we got it. I'll show it to y'all after. Or I'll give it to y'all so y'all
I want
can
to see it.
Share it with the people, whatever.
That's so
but
cool.
My sister's able to get a picture with this dude, her favorite singer, and, like, blew her mind.
I bet, yeah.
But it wasn't, and we talked about it after, it wasn't the fact she got a picture with this guy. It was the fact that she seen God show up, because if I would have left out that store 10 seconds after, we would have missed the dude. Or we would stay in that store 10 seconds longer, we would have missed him. But God's timing, the way God orchestrated that.
And something like, it's in the grand scheme of things, like getting a picture with your favorite artist, that's kind of a small thing.
It's a small thing.
But it's like how God is in every element of our life.
Every
the
element.
big things and the little things. Like, no matter what it is, he's always there, always orchestrating.
Exactly. And so that's one of those things where if you don't go, you don't know. Like, it started, the step of faith was me hitting him up on IG, and God was like, yo, hey, let's blow their mind. Just, like, do some funny stuff. Just have this, like, orchestrate. There's almost 9 million people in New York. What's the chances of that happening?
Right.
You know? And so that's how I know, like, God orchestrated that whole thing.
That's so cool.
And so the biggest thing I tell people is you don't know if you don't go, because, God wants just to go, and we just got to find out. It's all about a maybe. Maybe it will, maybe it won't.
Yeah.
So.
But you're not really losing anything. If God's calling you to do something, that's all you there we go. I got my fist bump for that. We're good. But, like, you know, you don't know what God has for you in store, but he does require us to be obedient. We're called to that, and we don't know what the outcome will be.
We don't know.
But it's going to grow our faith, because the more that we listen to his voice and follow what he has for us, we're going to grow in our faith and in our trust for him, for our lives and what he has for us.
Exactly.
I think that's good.
I think so too.
Rob, man, we could sit here and talk for another hour or two. Brother, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming out and sharing your story, because I really think this is going to help a lot of people to not only just hear how God has worked and moved in your life, but also the power of a mentor and what they are, what just ordinary people that are listening to this podcast can do and reach out, because you just never know.
You never know. Yeah, I'll just say this: obey God or die trying. That's the biggest thing. Obey God or die trying. You don't know. I mean, you don't lose nothing. Just obey Him, or just try to obey Him.
Man, I love that. Rob, thank you so much. I so appreciate your vulnerability. And, like, I've known bits and pieces of your story, but hearing you just sit down and tell the whole thing has been really encouraging for me. So thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it.
That.
Awesome.
That's it. That was
so good.
That was good.
Thank
Good
you
job.
so much.
Good stuff. Yeah.
That was
This
very
was
good
awesome.
stuff. Yeah,
that was
man.
good. I appreciate that.